Here we go.
Now back to Miller and Moulton.
No.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
29 minutes before the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We stream this show at millerandmoulton.com. You miss any part of the show, go to millerandmoulton.com, download our Clean Water America podcast, cleanwateramerica.com. If you give them a call, mention us, and you'll get $100 off, and hopefully you'll sign up for the Miller and Moulton Twitch.tv channel as well. Graham Hall's kind enough to join us once again. He covers the Gators for the Gainesville Sun. You can follow Graham on Twitter at @GrahamHall_. Graham, thanks so much for your time. Hope all is well with you and your friends and family during these times. How are you?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I cannot complain whatsoever. I think I'm doing a little bit better today than a lot of Florida fans who were expecting that defense was championship caliber. And I'm not going to sit here 12 quarters in and totally write them off. But without monumental changes, a lot of my friends and family are going to be complaining a lot more to me over the next 2 months about this team after I kind of sold them a shot at playing the college football playoff if everything went according to plan. So that's how I'm doing this morning, and hopefully everyone else out there who believed what I said can forgive me a little bit, but not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, and A&M, I think, just went on another 14-play, 80-yard drive for a touchdown. Graham, it's not just that. I mean, there's so much wrong with this defense. We could spend hours trying to figure out what they have to fix. But to me, Graham, it was a couple of things. One, they looked just out of sorts. They took bad angles the whole game. They gave up huge drives. They couldn't get off the field. One punt. Is it possible that they have to make a philosophical change as to how they play defense going forward?
I think it's absolutely possible. I think that this team believed, like a lot of us did, that they were so talented that they could go out there and play a lot of zone coverage, three-man rush, make mistakes lining up, not have linebackers drop into coverage, and that they would be good enough to go out there and still beat many teams, force turnovers, get teams off the field. That just has not been the case. And I know that everyone out there has speculated, well, what has the pandemic done to make it harder to play defense? This is the only thing that I can think of. When you're a wide receiver, you can go out there with your quarterback for 4 or 5 hours a day and practice your route running, your footwork, your routes on air, your chemistry, knowing what the quarterback's going to do pre-snap at the line of scrimmage. You can practice those things. As a defensive player, you weren't going out there every single Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and tackling and practicing your wrapping up. And when it came to fall camp, that's when those defensive backs had a chance to really work on lining up, getting aggressive at the line of scrimmage, using their hands, working on positioning like we saw with, guys like Marco Wilson, just guys who were out of position to make a play on the ball. That's stuff that may have possibly fallen by the wayside since Florida took the field last at end of 2019, aside from that 1 week of spring camp. So certainly I think a philosophical difference is something that needs to happen. I also think that there's a lot of guys who are out of position. You look at how they're using Diabate, Amari Burney, guys who had success last year in rush situations and are now being expected to work as coverage linebackers, or in Diabate's case is a buck who has multiple assignments. There's clearly some things that are not working out for Florida here. I think it is absolutely fixable, but the lack of turnovers aside from the one quarter, that's stuff that is going to start hurting your offense. And Florida absolutely can be better if they make some improvements on defense. We'll have to see if they can make those against an LSU team that I think they can take solace in knowing that LSU team is struggling a little bit more than they are even right now.
He's Graham Hall. He covers the Gators for the Gainesville Sun. Follow him on Twitter at @GrahamHall_. Listen, Todd Grantham's been in this league a long time, and I don't want to say he's a one-trick pony as a defensive coordinator, but he's a man-to-man aggressive D coordinator. He does not play a lot of bend but don't break. He plays very little zone, no matter where he's been coordinating. I don't know if he has it in him to back off philosophically, if you know what I mean, and to back off Graham from an X's and O's standpoint. I mean, do you think that he can make the necessary adjustment?
Yeah, that's what we're going to have to see. It's going to take, I think, him swallowing some pride and admitting that he should follow Dan Mullen and everyone else's advice. When we talked to Dan Mullen, when he got here, talking about retooling Florida's offense, much of those conversations were him saying, I'm going to put our guys in the best place. I'm going to tool my system around what we have. Well, Todd Grantham may have to take that own advice from someone on his own coaching staff, because when you look at the actual players that Florida has to plug into this system, it looks like they're lacking the necessary physicality, whatever you want to call it, at the line of scrimmage to get significant rush to put the other 7 guys in a position to make a play on the ball, to get stops, to force turnovers possibly. When you're not getting that pass rush, and I think a lot of this does come down to just who Florida is missing. I think you look at the interior of the defensive line, not having Kyrie Campbell, not recruiting the position too well in Dan Mullen's first 2 years. They just signed 1 defensive tackle in his first 2 classes. Last year, those issues were really minimized in the last 2 years by the arrival of defensive tackle Adam Schuler from West Virginia. He had a great impact at Florida, then went to the Arizona Cardinals, still looking for an NFL job right now. But I think that we can literally say that him and linebacker David Reese, this team is sorely missing those guys. I didn't think it would be this much, but it makes a little bit of sense looking at it right now. They're going to need some, whether it's Gervin Dexter, the highly touted freshman, they're going to need someone to get in there at nose tackle and get some pressure, because Florida is not getting any whatsoever right now. I think that's a big key. And if Todd Grantham can find some way to get some pressure up front, I don't think he needs to do something as big as change his entire scheme. But if he can't get that, he needs to stop trying to fit a round peg into a square hole and realize that he's going to have to make some changes himself.
Graham, beyond the Gators, when did the Big 12 invade the SEC? Because we used to sit around and make a lot of fun of the Big 12, and they can't play defense. And look what happens to Oklahoma when they go to the playoff. Ole Miss, I think, just scored on Alabama again. Obviously we know what A&M did. We watched now LSU get torched by Missouri. I mean, what the hell is Georgia? Looks like the only team that can play defense in the entire conference right now.
Yeah, it seems lame to say that guys like Lane Kiffin and all that were able to develop these amazing offenses while defenses are looking like they're playing AAU football out here. I think that is a pretty lame jump to make, because I don't think anyone is sitting here saying that, Lane Kiffin is the best coach in the SEC or whatever you want to call it. Like I said, I think it's been a little bit more difficult for defense to catch up just based on what they've had to go through. With all that said, I was not expecting the drop-offs on defense, especially in Florida. I know that LSU is kind of a shell of itself, but still, Alabama giving up 40-plus, 48 points to that Ole Miss team that Florida gave up 35 to, and what Mississippi State was able to do against LSU in that first week, even though that safety's got to be feeling not so good there in Starkville right now. I think that defense just is going to be a little bit slower to catch up, and that's why we're seeing these prolific offenses. I had said the first 2 weeks that if Florida had to be like 2009 Oklahoma and go out there every single game and win 51-45, they would begrudgingly take that. But as we've already seen, that's not the case. You have to have a defensive team, especially in the SEC. And right now, it's hard for me to say which team is the best defensive team in the conference. My gut right now is telling me it's an answer Florida fans don't want to hear, and that's Georgia. I thought that Georgia losing Sam Pittman, losing what they did on the offensive line, the quarterback situation, would be in for a multiple loss season. And right now, I think that there is a sizable gap between the Gators and Georgia and several other programs right now. And that's not sitting well with Florida fans.
Well, there's certainly a sizable gap on the defensive side of the ball between Georgia and everyone else in the conference right now. But Graham, Dan's comments after the game about wanting the swamp packed Saturday against LSU. A, how have they been received? And B, what is the policy going to be for Saturday afternoon's game against LSU?
Yeah, I think that they were portrayed accurately. He had an emotional reaction in this 6-minute press conference where, and this is based on people I talked to at the Texas A&M game, the Aggies, it looked like they had a nearly full student section and had plenty of crowd noise. And Dan Mullen had been advocating the SEC to step in August to set some mandates about the noise level and the crowd control that every stadium would have to face, and that never really happened. So I think that you're seeing just the gripes of someone who was looking to avoid this type of problem where you'd have an unfair crowd situation based off what state chooses to follow what policies. I think that you could understand why Dan Mullen was upset there, but he's going to have to either walk that back, or UF administration is going to have to remind people that that's not going to happen. Last night, right before the NBA Finals game, UF President Kent Fox came out and said, we're going to still follow CDC guidelines. We're going to adhere to what they say, and that includes athletic venues. So I wouldn't expect anything else to come out that goes against that. Unless that changes, it'll come from Florida's president himself rather than Dan Mullen. And obviously Dan Mullen's influence is huge here in Gainesville, but this is one of those decisions that he just does not get to make as much as he would like it. I know that he's going to be pushing for that behind closed doors with athletic director Scott Strickland, but I just don't see that happening right now, especially, guys, when Florida had trouble selling out their first game when they made 17,000 tickets available. They were 3,000 tickets short in the coming days before that kickoff against South Carolina. Now you want to get 80,000 more people into the stadium during a pandemic. I think the one solution that will make everyone happy here, and you really could say, and this is just my amateur opinion, that you really could say is not that medically of a risk, is to let more students in, because I think that what we know about their ability to fight off the virus, along with what you've seen from crowd noise at other situations now, if you can find a way to allow more students into the games, you could get that crowd noise and still keep everyone else safe on the other side of the stadium. But right now, I don't think that's going to happen for Florida's game against LSU. If that happens, that's going to come a little bit later in the season, and Dan Mullen may be a little bit more mad by the time that happens.
And, Graham, to me, I thought he sounded like a whining little kid. I thought it was awful, the comments. I thought his defense didn't stop anybody. And this just in, Graham, crowd noise is usually when your offense is on the field, not when your defense is on the field. That's usually what crowd noise, how it affects teams. Maybe their offense jumps. Florida's offense didn't have any problems, Graham. They have zero problems. Their offense, they may have the most dynamic player in the country in Pitts right now. I guess the one thing Dan's going to have to figure out to do, he may just know this is a track meet now. Because if they're not going to change defensively, 40's not enough on any Saturday for sure, is it?
It seems like it's not. I think that Florida fans were certainly upset at how many times they would be successful in scripted drives in the past, and then that'd be it when it came to the offense. Where you go back and watch that first game on Saturday, that first drive is 17 plays. Florida's offense only runs 33 plays the entire rest of the game, and they still managed to score 40 plus more points. So certainly I think that if you're Dan Mullen and you think that you're capable of outscoring everyone, you look at Kyle Pitts in the first quarter, as we've seen all season, he gets going really early, doesn't slow down besides that foot injury, and then Kadarius Toney picks up his slack with the multiple receiving touchdown game, a huge improvement out of him that we've seen. And then, the running backs I thought looked pretty good. Damian Pierce, Naquan Wright, Malik Davis looked pretty good. But like you said, with the defense not getting a stop, many people pinned that loss on Malik Davis's fumble, which is just so ludicrous in a sense because Florida never really should have been in that situation. Anytime you score that many points, only punt one, don't turn the ball over until the final minutes of the fourth quarter, you should have a great chance at winning that football game. And exactly, you just hit the nail on the head. The crowd noise would not have helped Florida's defense on the road get a pick six like what you saw against that LSU team a couple years ago when it was Brad Stewart sprinting in the end zone or any of those plays. Like it would have helped them in the swamp. So Dan Mullen just got some things off his chest, and maybe he was worried that in the next week, this coming week, that LSU will not have the detriment of the crowd noise hurting them, and that may be the difference. And if so, I think we can look back in retrospect in a few days and say, oh, Dan Mullen was a little prophetic there.
I think Dan was trying to deflect and change the subject. I got to be honest with you. He was emotional, but I think it was also calculated. Dan's a very calculated guy. Graham, thanks so much for your time and your insight. We appreciate it. Stay safe. Be well. We'll talk soon.
My pleasure. Y'all take care out there. Looking forward to doing it again soon.
Graham Hall covers the Gators for the Gainesville Sun. You can follow him on Twitter at Graham Hall _. Graham Hall _ Graham Hall joining us here on Miller and Moulton. It was a remarkable first half, Mark. I thought I was watching an Army game. Florida had the ball 3 times, scored all 3 times. A&M had the ball 3 times. They ran out of time on their third possession, had to settle for a short field goal. It was 21-17 at the half, no punts, Each team had the ball only 3 times. I literally thought it was an Army-Navy game.
And I don't remember Florida's drives, but every one of A&M's drive were over 80 yards and were all double-digit plays. And I know
were
17 on the first. I don't recall how many plays on the next 2 scoring drives, but each one of A&M's drives were 80-plus yards, 10-plus plays.
Now, remember, Jimbo likes to operate this way. He got criticized for it near the end of his Florida State tenure, and he had been criticized for it at A&M. They play a slow tempo. Jimbo's not a quick strike guy. I will say there were a lot of people, Gator fans like, to promote their own at the expense of others. And hey, I'm a big Kyle Trask guy, but I've been saying for 2 years, Kellen Mond can play. All right. And yeah, I know they hadn't won a big game. I think Gator fans will tell you, hey, Kyle Trask is good. And you know what? I may take him over Kellen Mond, but Kellen Mond can play. Yes, he can. He's an intriguing Sunday prospect. He's a project, but he's an intriguing guy.